How's it going, everybody? I'm Lewis and we've got a new developer blog about the poll system. Now, I say new, I'm actually quite late creating this video. I've been a little bit busy and I figured that the poll would be out soon so I could create both videos at the same time, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So first of all, the poll system is a key part of the Old School RuneScape game. Personally, I feel that the whole reason Old School RuneScape is such a great game and is such a community-based game is the fact that we do have the polling system. The polling system is great because it means every single update that comes into the game is voted on by us, the community. However, it does have a few flaws, and the Old School RuneScape team wants to try and address these. Now, the first thing they're talking about is representing everybody fairly. Seeing as updates require 75% approval to actually happen, they find that targeting smaller communities for updates can actually be quite hard. Some of the more well-known communities that you can think of would be Pures or Iron Men. And sure, you might say Iron Man and Pures have had quite a few updates over the years. They have still got a lot of requests, and some of them have failed and they still want them. For example, if you think about Pures wanting to go back to Apital without getting defense experience. So they've come up with a couple of ideas to try and give everybody a fair representation in the polling system. The first idea is limiting certain questions to players who interact with that content being affected by the update. For example, Iron Men would be able to vote in a poll question that is exclusively impacting their game mode. If they're going to make an update polled to just a specific part of the community, they're going to make sure it is exclusive to that community. If it provides an advantage or change to another community, then it would require the approval of the entire Old School RuneScape community as opposed to the small community. I'm glad that they're making it exclusive content only. If it was something that affects other communities, I would be very annoyed, but the exclusivity is key for this. The only reason I'm not really much of a fan of this is the fact that what if in the future I want to join a community or whatnot, and right now I want to have my say. An example of that would be, I don't have an Iron Man right now, but potentially if I get to a certain level on my current main account and I think, I want to make an Iron Man, I can go ahead and do that without fear of updates happening without my say. Another idea that they want to suggest is reducing the actual level of support required for an update to come into the game. Obviously 75% is quite high, and if they're trying to target content towards certain communities that are going to be smaller than the 75% needed to get into the game, it's going to be quite hard for an update to get into the game. They're talking about potentially lowering it to about 70%. I think they mentioned that a little bit in the past and then it didn't actually pass a poll, so they didn't implement it, but I suppose they'll see when they actually do this poll. Personally, my opinion for reducing the amount of support for something to get into the game is, if it has to happen, it can happen at 70%, that's not too bad. But I don't see this as a viable solution, because if we do lower it to 70%, people are going to be complaining when something gets 69, 68%, whereas at the moment, they complain less. They only complain when they get 74 or 73%. And if we reduce it, then people will keep asking for it to be reduced, and where do we stop? I love the idea of having 75% because it actually means the community wants an update to happen if it's going to happen, and you can't really argue against that. Take for example the latest Dragon Claws update. Personally, I was heavily against that when they were polling it, when they was doing all the developer blogs. Over the years I've been against them, but now they're in game, I can't argue against it, and it's just something I've got to embrace. Although it's not like I've changed my opinion, I do think they are very powerful, but it's just something we have in Old School RuneScape now, and I can't change that. Anybody that says lowering the percentage on the polls for Old School RuneScape is essential, I would say that's absolutely ludicrous. Reason being is that if an update gets 70% of the community's approval, then it means it is a good update. However, it's not good enough. We should look at that update and actually analyse it, think, what can we change, what can we improve to actually get it into the game and actually have that 75% approval. You might think, they've tried that in the past, but it's failed. I would say, yes, they failed because they've done it in a very weird way. Take, for example, the Raids Armor survey. They asked if we wanted it to be more powerful, if we wanted it to be the same, or if we wanted it to be lower. And of course, that was kind of an average to stay the same. And therefore they just polled the same thing over and over, and it didn't get into the game. If they were to look at a way of just getting it into the game, then it might be a bit more interesting. I would argue it's a lot easier to get a weapon with lower powered stats into the game and buff it than just polling a high powered weapon. Anyway, let's move on to some further changes to the poll system. One suggestion we've heard about quite a bit is changing your vote. This means that if you change your mind during the poll, then you can actually change your vote. It's not like you're going to be stuck and locked in over that period of time. This is fine, I don't really have anything against this, although I find it a bit strange when there are streamers going, oh please, 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 vote for this, vote for that. Although sometimes I do find myself saying, oh, I'd love for someone to vote this or whatever, so I suppose I am somewhat guilty of that. Another thing they're talking about is hiding the results until the poll's actually finished. Now this would change my videos significantly when I do my poll videos, however it will still be fine. This would stop players from looking at how far a poll is to passing or failing and making their vote based on that. I don't feel that's a huge issue, I don't think many players particularly do that, and it's not like it's going to make a huge difference to updates. Although that being said, I feel that some updates, as they've gotten closer to 75%, they've got a lot more votes in to actually come into the game. One example would be probably the Grand Exchange. I believe when I voted originally it was just about failing, but as time went on, lots of people came in, voted yes, and got the Grand Exchange. And the final point they've got about the polling system is somewhat removing the polling system or reducing its capabilities. How many updates should they actually poll and how many updates should they just do? At this level in 2017, they seem to be not polling temporary updates and bug fixes. So now what they want to do is maybe extend that so usability and quality of life updates could not be polled and they could just come into the game, and maybe information displaying features, maybe like chat messages and stuff, could not be polled because they're fairly mundane things that we're not really going to be too bothered about. Personally, I feel about unpolled content is don't do it. I like having our say in all the updates, even if it's the small ones. That being said, if this were to actually pass, I could live with it. I think quality of life, usability tweaks, things like that, that's not like a huge update that's going to completely affect my gameplay. But the big updates, definitely I feel we should always poll. And really, if the Old School RuneScape team want to stop polling certain updates, they should be looking at the same sorts of criteria as they're doing if they want to limit certain questions to certain communities. How they check the exclusivity and which communities are involved with an update would be very useful if they want to check if they want to poll an update or not. So if you've got any ideas, feedback for the Old School RuneScape team about these changes to the poll system, please do so in the forums. And if you want to chat about them with me, please do so in the comments below. If you want to watch my video on the latest Old School RuneScape update, please click here for raid improvements. And if you want to watch my video on the update before that, please click here for the Chambers of Zero. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and share, and if you want to keep up to date with the Old School RuneScape updates, DevBlogs and polls, please subscribe. I've been Lewis, thanks for watching, goodbye.